automatic extraction as possible. And in this important again is one more thing you can do is try going near to a vessel which can get punctured. Like in giving the blocks, like you are giving inferior alveolar nerve block for a work, but there are chances that you may hit the inferior vessel which may get punctured and lot of hematoma may occur because bleeding is an issue here. So try, if possible, try avoiding blocks. Try to manage the case with infiltration, especially in case of maxilla also, like PSA has a high chances of bleeding from the vessels. So try giving infiltrations instead of giving blocks, because in blocks you are going more near to the major vessels, like inferior, in PSA also maxillary artery. So you can try to avoid whatever is possible. Try to go as automatic as possible. Then before leaving the patient, make it sure that the hemostasis is completely achieved. Like you can do keep packs for half an hour, evaluate the patient again, and when you are doubly sure, then only send the patient home. Otherwise, you will get a call maybe afterward, or some patient may have to rush back again. So achieve complete hemostasis in such patients, any bleeding clotting disorders. The measures like gel foam or water clot, there are different measures we can and suture. Now, after bleeding clotting disorder, respiratory disorders, there are many like COPD is there, tuberculosis also in this, asthma is there. So maybe from history, or you will ask for these specific things, or you will be evaluating for these things. And if in doubt, physician consultation. Always try to take physician consultation. Then already we have discussed this part. If patient gives history of asthma, so always make sure that he is bringing his inhaler with him. Or you have in emergency these things available. If asthmatic episode occur, what will you inject? So bronchodilators or darbepoetin or adrenaline, these things should be available chairside or in emergency drugs. And in emergency drugs, make it a practice that when you start your clinic, maybe after 1 or 2 years, you need to check expiry of these drugs, because they are not that much routinely used. If I take a adrenaline, expiry is only 1 year. So usually such situations will not arrive and should not arrive, but we need to have a habit of checking the expiries of these drugs. Then bronchodilator should be available. Then how to position a patient if he gets asthmatic attack. जैसे सिनकोप के लिए सब लोग बोलते हैं सुपाइन कर दो. This position is very important. If he gets asthmatic attack, सुपाइन कर दो किया, तो you are aggravating the situation. So in any respiratory episodes, such asthmatic attacks or anything occurs, we should allow the patient to take a comfortable position. Usually it is a sitting posture. In the sitting, he feels comfortable than the lying posture. So it's not that कभी भी कुछ हुआ तो सुपाइन ही करना है, सुला तो नहीं. In respiratory issues, usually sitting posture helps patient to breathe well. Then again, emotional stress factors can precipitate an attack, definitely. So this part has to be taken care of by good counseling, and try to do, if needed, use sedation. Then there are infectious situations which you need to be careful about. Like viral hepatitis, there are many things like even HIV is there. We cannot discuss each and everything, but viral hepatitis, HIV, these are serious issues which we need to be always have in mind that patient. Best way is think that all the patients are suffering from HIV and hepatitis, and then tackle that way. So that way you will take all the measures properly. You must had lecture of infection control also. So best thing is all the measures, like single or double gloves. Nowadays we are using double gloves only because of COVID also, like mask, good mask, shield. These are all protective gears we always should be using, thinking that from patient and patient is having HIV. So that is the best way. Dentists are more prone to this because a lot of aerosol is there, because many are the airborne infections, and hepatitis and HIV are bloodborne. So main way of transferring these is by use needles, because or sharp things. These are bloodborne infections. So most common is needle prick injuries. These are the commonly reported things. Now needle prick, how does it happen? It happens only when you try to recap the needle with 2 hands. So make it a habit to recap the needle. You all must be knowing with a scoop technique, never with the two hands. Whatever situation, always do. This is most important. Our safety is most important. So do it with a one hand scoop technique. Keep the letter cap there in the tray, and with a scoop technique, do it. So if you follow this, you will never have needle prick when recapping. Other times also it may happen like you are giving a block, you are doing retraction. So always be careful when dealing with sharps. Our safety is more important, also patient safety, but if you are there, then only you will be able to do the patients. So and these are very deadly things. It's, if it comes, it will never go, hepatitis and HIV, so be careful with them. If patient gives history, prepare yourself, prepare the patient well, and always look for these things: hepatitis, HIV. Consult patient physician. Hepatitis affect the liver, so that's bleeding issues may be there because clotting factors get reduced. So vitamin K supplementation and yeah, all the drugs get metabolized through the liver. That has also to be thought of, that everything will go through the liver. Double protection, mask, and instruments have to be properly recycled. This was about hepatitis. Now, next is renal failure. Now, not very common, but you may get a patient who is having some renal issues, kidney issues. You may get patient even after kidney transplants also nowadays. Again, a common modality. So, less invasive procedures, evaluation, proper KFT evaluation, and preparation of the patient. All the drugs get excreted to the kidney. That has also to be thought of. Don't give heavy doses or unnecessary medications, and take proper fitness, and then only do the patient. Again, most of the patients को रहता है ये थायराइड, बट उनको ये नहीं पता होता कि है क्या, मेरे को हाइपो है कि हाइपर है. So that we need to look for or advise investigation, take proper physician consent, and then only start doing the patients. इसमें कम भी हो सकता है, ज्यादा भी हो सकता है. तो well controlled patient has to be done. Uncontrolled नहीं करना है. There are many situations which are beyond the scope of this lecture to be covered, but bottom line is be prepared. To conclude, take detailed history, think for all possibilities कि ये patient में सब कुछ हो सकता है या कुछ ना कुछ तो होगा ही. Try to search for it. If in doubt, take proper investigations करो. Consult physician. If in doubt, take written fitness from the physician for the procedure. Then you will be safe. Not only for the procedure, for medical legal purpose also. That you have taken all the measures. On written, you have that fitness is there for the procedure. Or physician advise some measures which need to be taken. And how well you are prepared, you know everything, but the most important thing is always think that ये patient में ये possibility है कि emergencies हो सकता है. Emergencies can come anytime. So best way to tackle emergencies is be prepared with them. So the panic will be less. If you have all the emergency drugs and if you have in mind that hypoglycemic हुआ तो मैं sugar दूंगा या 50% dextrose दूंगा, syncope हुआ तो मैं supine करूंगा. If you have everything in mind कि asthmatic हुआ तो then the panic will be less and management will be better. So be prepared to deal with these emergencies. So these are the emergency drugs, and emergency kit is always there in all departments. So you can, whenever you posting, so you can see which drugs are there. You may check the expiry also. Sister को बता देना expiry नहीं रहा ठीक तो. And these are the common emergency drugs. You should be knowing how to inject them, in which situations to use them. And this part in next lecture you will be enlightened about this part in the next lecture. Thank you, and hope you have great time in your internship and great learning.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for such an elaborative lecture on management of a medically compromised patient. I hope all the interns will get the basic idea to manage the medically compromised patient whenever doing any kind of a surgery. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Dr. Nilima Buddharaja ma'am. She is a senior lecturer in the Department of Oral Maxillofacial Surgery, and ma'am will be taking the topic of medical emergencies in the dental practice. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Rahul. Thank you, Shita, for elaborating in detail about management of medically compromised patients. As Kshitij sir has in detail, he had explained about how the medically compromised patients should be managed, how we can avoid any of the medical emergencies in medically compromised patients. This is very important. If you take care of all the precautions, all the points that Kshitij sir has told you, then I'm quite sure that you won't be encountering any of the medical emergencies in your dental practice, because more than half of the cases we can avoid by taking proper case history, proper taking a precaution, preventive measures of encountering any of the medical emergencies. Okay, so let's start with the presentation. There are three steps, or very important steps that should be taken care so that we can avoid any of the medical emergency in our dental practice. First of all, we should be have thorough information of any of the medical history of the patient and any of the drug history. Any of the drug information patient is on any kind of drugs like antiplatelet, anticoagulant. If patient is allergic to any of the drug, then this information is very important to us. Obviously, if we are aware of the medical history, then we can avoid any medical emergencies related to cardiovascular system, respiratory system. And if we are thorough with the drug history of the patient, then obviously we can avoid any of the drug allergic incidents, anaphylaxis, and all kind of that. Second is that planning and preparation. Now, the patient of medically compromised patient or patient with any of the logic conditions comes to you, and you are aware of the medical history and you are aware of the drug history that the patient is allergic to certain kind of drug, then what you do, you have to properly plan your procedure and prepare accordingly. Okay, you should have always ready with you the drug tray, that is emergency drug tray with you. You should be you should have been taken a training, a proper training for management of emergency, and you also should have basic emergency equipment there in your dental practice. Obviously there shouldn't be any of the medical emergencies in our practice, but it doesn't mean that we can't encounter any of the emergencies in our practice. So we should be prepared for that thoroughly in a dental setup. So how we can do that? If we are channelized, then obviously we can avoid any of the medical emergencies, and though if we encounter any of the medical emergency, then we will be prepared and bold enough to face that emergency. But for that, training is very important first. And second, you should be prepared in your dental clinic with all the necessary equipment and drugs. Obviously, you are thorough with the knowledge that what drugs should be given in which kind of medical emergency. But if you don't have that kit in your dental clinic with you, or any wherever you are practicing, then obviously that knowledge won't be helping you out. Okay, so you should be having this much basic things. I have covered what basic drugs should be there in your clinic, what basic equipment should be there, and in basic training, what should be you should be aware how if the patient gets unconscious, that how you should assess the patient, how you should give CPR. At least basic you should have idea for everything. Okay. Third is critical incident analysis. First of you have prepared, you have planned for everything. Okay, you have planning and you have preparation that you shouldn't encounter any of the medical emergencies. But still, if you encounter any of the emergency, then you should able to analyze the situation, that where what is going wrong with the patient. Either the patient is going hypoglycemic, or the patient is having angina, or the patient is asthmatic, or the patient is getting unconscious. What is happening with the patient? You should be aware of that. You should analyze the situation, and accordingly you should act upon it. Now, all dental professionals, they should must be, this is a basic requirement, that you should be able to give IM, intermuscular injection, or IV injections. Okay, this is the basic. You have all the kit, emergency kit ready with you, but you don't know how to inject the drug, then it won't be of any use to you. Okay, so you should be having trained in at least how to give injectables, and secondly how to give CPR. This two thing is very important. for manage any of the medical emergency. If you know these two things, then you can boldly and daringly perform procedures, dental procedures, and you will have definitely having the confidence of how to manage the medical emergencies. Now, there are different predisposing factors for arrival of the medical emergencies in our dental practice. If we are aware of these conditions, then definitely we can avoid medical emergencies in our dental practice. First, there's physiological conditions, obviously extremely geriatric patients or pregnancy, we can think that medical emergency can encounter. So when you come across this kind of patients, then you have to be very cautious, okay? Secondly, different pathological conditions like Kshitij sir have discussed everything regarding CPS, respiratory, endocrine, liver. Now you have idea about all of the medically compromised conditions which can lead to medical emergencies. Okay, so this is predisposing factors. If you take care about these conditions preoperatively, like before starting any of your procedure, if you take proper precautions, the preoperative precautions, the intraoperative precautions, then definitely there are very less chances that you'll encounter any of the medical emergencies. Now, medical emergencies has been classified into different kinds, like medical emergencies or surgical emergencies. In medical emergencies, patient during your procedures, patient can get unconscious. There are different reasons for it. Patient could be going into syncope, or there could be postural hypotension, or patient can complain of bronchospasm, or there could be an altered level of consciousness. This could be because of hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia, or patient can there could be conversion to the patient, or patient can complain of chest discomfort, or patient might be complain of angina. Okay, so now you know different types of medical emergencies, what are the predisposing factors of medical emergencies, what are the classification of medical emergencies, how you can avoid it, that you all know in detail. Okay, but after taking care of everything, after taking precautions kind of everything, but still you encounter medical emergencies. Okay, so there are different drugs which are indicated, emergency drugs that are indicated for different kind of medical emergencies. So you should be thorough for that. At least you can remember one emergency drug with one proper indication. Okay, you don't have to get confused with everything. This has been divided into two parts: emergency drugs, and second is the non-emergency drugs. But that is important to be there, that should be there in your clinic. Okay, emergency drug kit, what should be there? The injectables drugs first, and the second is non-injectable drugs. Okay, in injectables drugs you should have adrenaline with you. Okay, and that too with a dilution of 1:1000 solution. So when this will be indicated, you will inject 0.5 to 1 mg IV or subcutaneous in case of cardiac arrest. Okay, in case of cardiac arrest, fine. Adrenaline is also used in different kind of situations also, but mostly in clinic we use it for cardiac arrest. Fine. Then there is antihistaminics like chlorpheniramine maleate 10 mg per ml. This is used in patients with anti-allergic anaphylaxis shock. Okay, these are the drugs which has to be there in your dental clinic, and in every 6 months you should continuously check with the expiry date of the emergency drugs also in your kit, because mostly it won't be used. So it get expired without use only. So you should have practice in that. In every 5 to 6 months you should check with the expiry date. In anti-anxiety, you should keep diazepam with you. 10 mg ampule can be used. Patient is many times quite anxious also. And secondly, in case of status epilepticus, you have to give diazepam. Then vasopressor, in case of patient with MI, angina, you can give mefentin. Okay. Corticosteroids, this is very, very important drug. It has to be there in your kit, hydrocortisone. Okay. It is used in patient with anaphylaxis, in case of shock, in case of drug allergy, in case of bronchospasm. In all this case, hydrocortisone is used. So this is very important. Adrenaline is very important. Chlorpheniramine maleate is very important. You can encounter allergy any of the time in your dental clinic. Then there is sodium bicarbonate. When the patient undergoes into metabolic acidosis, then sodium bicarbonate can be given. Then there is a Xylocard. Okay, it is purified lidocaine. Okay, when we can use this, we can use this in case of antiarrhythmic. Now, atropine is also very important. It is in the dose of 0.5 mg. We can give it IV or IM. It is used in case of severe bradycardia. And we can use this in case of pre-anesthetic medication before the major surgery. And next is dextrose. Dextrose is very important, also very important. Dextrose 50%. Okay, we can give 50 for treating hypoglycemia. Okay, if the patient is sir has told you, if the patient is conscious, then you can give glucose solution. If the patient is unconscious, you have to give IV. Okay, so then aminophylline is in ampule of 250 mg. It is available, and we have to give it in diluted form in 20 to 50 ml of 5% dextrose, and it is given as a bronchodilator in case of patient with bronchospasm. So this were the injectable drugs. This is a detailed drugs that should be there in your kit. But with the one which I have mentioned here, this is compulsorily that this should be there in your kit. Okay, adrenaline, antihistaminics, anti-anxiety, vasopressor, corticosteroids, sodium bicarb, Xylocard, atropine, dextrose, aminophylline. Okay. Now, non-injectable drugs, what should be there with you in your clinic is oxygen. Definitely, oxygen supply should be there, and nitroglycerin. This is for angina patient. Okay. Nifedipine, which can be given sublingually in case of severe hypertension. Okay. Then you should have ammonia with you. In case of syncope, what we can do, we can take a cotton and we can dip it with the ammonia and keep it in front of the nose of the patient. So ultimately, what will happen when patient will inhale, it will give a medullary stimulation, and ultimately patient will regain consciousness. Then oral glucose, it should be there if the patient is hypoglycemic. Then patient's nebulizer, patient inhaler should be there if the patient is asthmatic. Now that were regarding the drugs. Now what are the emergency delivery, emergency equipments that should be there with us? There should be obviously keeping just oxygen won't help us. There should be an oxygen delivery system also with us. So oxygen delivery system, suction and suction tips will be requiring for the procedures, syringes for injectable drugs, airway, endotracheal tubes and laryngoscopes are quite advanced thing, but at least you should have oropharyngeal airway with you. It is quite easy to insert also, and this should be available with you. Now we'll quickly see about different situations in which encounter medically compromised medical emergencies. I won't be detailing it because Kshitij sir had elaborated very beautifully regarding everything. So, what is cardiac arrhythmia? Cardiac arrhythmia is there's a history of palpitation and the pulse and heartbeat irregularities is there. Okay, this can be made diagnosed with the ECG, but we should be able to make differentiate between tachyarrhythmia and bradyarrhythmia. Now, second is angina. Sir, I told you about everything. What is angina? How we should avoid it. We should give stress reduction protocol. What are the clinical manifestations? How it occurs? Okay, and how we have to manage it. We can manage it by we have to stop the dental procedure immediately. We should check for pulse, BP, respiration. Start oxygen inflow. Sublingually, we can give nitrate 5 mg and aspirin 300 mg on start. Okay, and obviously we have to call for help. We have to ask the any of the attendant or any of the third person available with us to call the cardiologist or any of the physicians, preferably nearby, so that we don't waste any of our time. Then acute myocardial infarction, it is chest pain which is severe and lasts more than 20 minutes and which does not respond to rest or nitrates. That is a differentiating point between angina and myocardial infarction. Okay, MI pain won't respond to rest or nitrate. So how you're going to manage a patient of MI on a dental chair? You're working, you're doing any of the procedure, and the patient encounters myocardial infarction, then how you are going to manage it? You are going to send a blood sample for cardiac enzymes, stop dental procedure, adjust the dental chair, okay, check for the vital signs, okay, blood pressure, pulse, respiratory rate, this you have to check, start the oxygen, give injection morphine if it's there with you, give tablet nitrate, aspirin, avoid advise complete bed rest, and shift the patient to ICU. Call the physician and shift the patient to ICU. Okay, and if you feel that the patient is getting unconscious or the patient has gone, patient is unconscious now, then you have to start with the basic life support. That is the cardiopulmonary resuscitation. You have to start by your own. You can't wait anyone else to come and help you out. By that time, you have to ask your attendant or the third person to call any of the physician or arrange for the ambulance. By that time when you're alone with the patient, none of the help is available, it's your responsibility. You have to manage that emergency. So basic, when you are have basic idea of how to give CPR, then definitely you can manage and you can help the patient to survive. I'll be dealing about CPR in detail later on. That is very important. If you know how to manage the unconsciousness of the medical emergency, then you can manage anything. Okay. Then asthma breathlessness we know, and if the attack is severe, patient becomes cyanosed. Okay. So if the episode of asthma is mild, then we can give the inhaled salbutamol or the puff that patient is carrying with himself. Okay, or you can nebulize the patient. Okay, steroids like beclomethasone can also be given. But if the attack is severe, then we can give subcutaneous adrenaline 0.5 ml. Okay, and injection hydrocortisone should be there. Injection aminophylline in diluted form, which I have told you earlier. And meanwhile, while you're managing all this, ask your helper to arrange for ambulance or any of the physicians nearby to mobilize the patient. Next is hyperventilation. What happens when the patient is in pain or patient is anxious? So what happens is respiratory rates get increased. So when the respiratory rate increase, what happens? When you exhale, carbon dioxide gets out. So what happens when your breathing rate, respiratory rate increases? Your CO2 level get depleted in your body. Okay, so ultimately what happens? Respiratory alkalosis occur. So how you can avoid this? You have to terminate the procedure. Stress reduction protocol should be done before. Okay. Now, if you have encountered the situation, you have to comfortably ask the patient to be in a comfortable position. If there is any foreign body or any of the tightness is there, then you have to remove it. You have to calm the patient. You can ask the patient to breathe in a exhale reservoir is there, okay, or a envelope kind of thing. You can put it in the cover the nose and mouth of the area and ask him to inhale and exhale on that envelope pouch only. So what will happen? This he will take the expired CO2 in more over concentrated. He will inhale more CO2. Okay. Next is epilepsy. If the patient and if you encounter epileptic attack in your dental chair, then any of the thing in your mouth, the procedure, like if you're doing endodontic treatment, file is there, or if you're taking impression, tray is there, you have to remove all of the thing. Protect the patient from any of the injury. Don't interrupt. Let the seizure get stopped spontaneously by its own. Okay. But if it doesn't subside on its own, then you have to give injection diazepam 10 mg slowly, okay, and call for the physician. And this is a very commonly encountered medical emergency in our clinic, and we should be thorough with it. What are the stages? What are the causes, pathophysiology, and everything? It occurs in two stages: pre-syncopial and syncopial stage. It could be because of stress, fever, anxiety, or it could be because of physical stress, because of the long upright posture during the dental procedure, or because of warm or humid environment in the clinic. Okay, so how you can what one is that there's a release of catecholamines from adrenal cortex, and ultimately there's a compensatory mechanism for stress. So ultimately what happens, it leads to the vagal stimulation, and there is peripheral vasodilation. And so what happens there is pulling of blood in veins in extremity. So ultimately the venous return to the heart is less, and because of that blood supply towards brain is less, and ultimately because of which there is uh, altered consciousness of the patient, and which leads to syncope. Okay, different clinical signs is that patient will complain of tachycardia, palpitation, tremors, flushing. There will be raised blood pressure, increased respiration. Patient will not feel well. Patient will nauseating, fainting. Okay, these are the signs of syncope. Now, how we are going to manage it? Stop the procedure immediately. Remove any of the instruments which is there in the mouth. Position the patient in head low and feet up. Okay, why feet up? So the venous return towards the heart is increased. Fine. Then any tight clothes should be loosened up. You can give, I have told you that we should have that ammonia liquid in your emergency kit. Okay, so you can ask the patient to inhale that. Okay, ultimately what will happen, because of that there will be medullary stimulation and patient will regain the consciousness. Okay, and alternative, you can sprinkle the cold water. Then ultimately all this what happens, they create stimulation. Okay, if still there is no recovery and patient will is undergoing to bradycardia, that is the heart rate is decreasing, then you have to give injection atropine. If still there is no recovery, then look for other causes, if the patient is hypoglycemic or if any other condition is there. And if the patient has got into an unconscious state, then you have to start with the basic life support. Okay, and you have to call for the medical help. Now, postural hypotension, what happens actually in postural hypotension, when the patient is sitting and you're doing procedure for a long time, patient is there in one position only, okay? And when your patient, after the procedure gets over, patient tries to stand up, patient gets into a postural hypotension. The blood pressure falls by 40 mm of Hg, okay? So ultimately, because of that, there's altered consciousness of the patient. This is postural hypotension. So how we can avoid it? Don't give a long time for any of the procedure, or patient is sitting on one position for a long period, that should be avoided. Okay, though if this occurs, make the patient in supine position. Start with the basic airway, breathing and circulation check for this. Administer oxygen, and definitive management should be given. And if the patient is well, then you can discharge the patient. Then stroke. If the stroke clinic, then examine airway, breathing and circulation, whether the airway patient is able to respirate or not, breathing patient is able to breathe or not, or if there is pulse present is not. You have to basically manage this airway, breathing and circulation. If this is compromised, then you have to start with the basic life support, that is the cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Okay, and ask the patient, lie down the patient in lateral position and call the physician immediately. Now, these are the different how you're going to manage a patient of hypoglycemia. Sir, I had already told you how to manage it. If the patient is awake, then give him glucose water. If patient is conscious, if patient is unconscious, then you have to give IV dextrose 25%, or you have to inject glucagon 1 mg per kg of body weight. Now, anaphylaxis, this we can encounter. We should be prepared with it. We should be thoroughly prepared with it in our dental clinic, because it won't be giving us much time. Okay, so that's why to avoid this, we do sensitivity test before injecting local anesthesia to the patient, right? So that is a very important procedure, and we are not supposed to avoid that in any of the circumstances. What are the signs of that? If the patient is going to anaphylaxis, severe itching will be there. Patient will complain of difficulty in breathing. There will be bronchospasm, hypotension. If this occurs, then how we are going to manage it? We are going to give adrenaline, hydrocortisone, anti-allergic like chlorpheniramine, aminophylline, because bronchospasm will be there. So we'll be giving bronchodilator. Okay. Now we have seen basically what are the different medical emergencies that we can encounter and how we can avoid it, and if though it occurs in different kind of medical emergencies, what drug can be given, okay, and how we can manage it. But still, after doing all of the things, if the patient goes into unconsciousness, then the treatment remains one treatment. Okay, you have to see for the airway. Okay, you have to extend the neck and clear the airway. Means that if any of the foreign body obstruction is there, or any of the if you're because of your procedure, uh, saliva has been accumulated or anything of the there, you have to suction it out and you have to clear the airway. Second is that breathing. If the patient is not breathing or not respirating, you have to give mouth to mouth breathing to the patient. Or if you have mask available in your clinic, then you have to give mouth to mask uh, in your to the patient. Okay, 100% oxygen can be delivered through a mask. If that is available with you and oxygen supply is there with you, then you can deliver 100% oxygen through that. You don't have to give mouth to mouth with that. Okay, and even if ambu bag is there with your clinic, you can give it with that. But if you don't have any of the facility in your clinic, then you have to give mouth to mouth breathing if the patient is not respirating. Circulation, okay, you have to check for the carotid pulse. Okay, I have shown it later on also. If you're not able to feel the carotid pulse, it means that the circulatory system is getting compromised. You have to start with the cardiac compressions. Okay, so this is what I was telling you about. Okay, first of all, now your patient is unconscious. Okay, how you are going to proceed now? Okay, now there is no medical management. You have given everything what is there with you, but the patient is unconscious. Then what you're going to do? First, you're going to check for response. You're going to ask him whether he is okay. Okay, if there is no response, you're going to call for help. You are going to tell your attendant or any of the relative, if patient's relative is there with you, then you are going to ask him that go call any physician or call for ambulance or give contact number of the concerned person. Okay, then simultaneously what you're going to do, you're going to check for the pulse. Okay, pulse is what? Carotid pulse. You're going to check for the carotid pulse. How you're going to see for the carotid pulse? This is our trachea. Okay, and you're going to slide 2 fingers in between the trachea and the sternocleidomastoid muscle in this group. Okay, you can palpate it by yourself also. You have to keep your 2 fingers over here, and you have to palpate for 5 to 10 seconds, not more than. Okay, if you're not able to feel carotid pulse, then, and if you're in doubts situation, consider it that the pulse is not there and don't delay the further management. Okay, and while feeling for carotid pulse, simultaneously you have to see the patient's chest whether it's rising or not. If it's rising, it means breathing is there. If it's not rising, it means that patient is not breathing. Okay, now if you think that pulse is there, breathing is not there, so what you're going to do, only you're going to provide the breath to the patient. Okay, mouth to mouth or the oxygen. Okay, but if you feel that both is not there, patient is not breathing also, patient is not, there is no pulse also, so there is next step, you have to start with the cardiopulmonary resuscitation. What is cardiopulmonary? Cardio is for cardiac compression, pulmonary is for mouth to mouth, that is for the respiratory. Okay, so how you're going to do cardiac compression? First of all, you have to keep your hand in middle of the chest. Okay, in lower third of the sternum area, and you have to cross your second hand over it, and you have to cross your fingers over it. Okay, and with this palm, with this area, you have to give pressure in the victim's chest area. Okay, and what should be the rate of it? It should be 100 to 120 per minute, but not more than 120 per minute. And what should be the depth of it? The depth of it should be 2 to 2.4 inches, not more than that. Okay, and how your position should be? It should be like that. You should come over the victim like this, and your shoulder, elbow and hand should be in one angle. It shouldn't bend. I have a video also in next slide. In that, you please notice how the compression is given and how mouth to mouth breathing is given. Okay, that is very important to notice all this thing. Now we have seen how the compression is given. Now we'll see how the breath is given. Okay, and in combining that, in last we will see a complete video of that. Now for giving breath, what you're going to do? head tilt chin lift. How you're going to do a head with edge of one of your hand, you're going to tilt the head, okay, and with two fingers placing over the chin area and the bony area, not in soft tissue, you're going to chin lift. Okay, so ultimately with this, what happened? The airway will get open. Okay, and then you can place a mouth mask over it. Okay, and you can give breath to the patient. If this mouth mask is not available with you, then no problem. Just pinch the nose. Okay, and give mouth to mouth breathing. Cover your mouth with the victim's mouth. Okay, and give breath to the patient. How much breath you are going to give the patient? 2 breath. Okay, 30 compressions, 2 breath. 30 compressions, 2 breath. Okay, 5 cycles of this has to be completed. Fine. In 2 minutes time, 5 cycles should be completed. This should be the rate. Okay, now we'll see the video. Please notice how the compression is been given and how the breath is given. Okay, this is very important.
In this clip, we will combine all things together and show everything in one sequence.
Hey, are you okay? Can you hear me? He's not responding. He's not breathing normally. Just gasping. Please activate the emergency response and get AED, please. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30.
Okay, this is just the one video I've shown you. We have the whole 1 day program which runs in an institution in Skill Lab. Okay, where they train us for all kind of this emergencies. If the patient get unconscious, that how can you manage the situation? Okay, that is full 1 day program, and this is very helpful. And obviously, when you will be joining here, you'll get the opportunity to attend that, and it is very helpful. You should definitely attend that 1 day full program. Okay, next is choking. Okay, now what happens, you patient is got unconscious, you have done CPR, and unless any help has arrived to you, either ambulance or the physician, you have to shift the patient to the cardiac unit or any of the hospital. Okay, this is your responsibility. Now if situation of choking arises, okay, what is choking? Any of the foreign body, like you're doing a dental procedure, dental files, or during impression taking any of the impression material, or any of the dental material, it gets lodged into the our respiratory tract. So ultimately what happens, patient choke because patient is not able to breathe. So ultimately what happens, patient gives you sign like this is called as universal sign for choking. What it shows, that the respiratory, the obstruction is severe. Okay, severe, it means that patient is not able to cough, patient is not able to say anything. Okay, patient is like this is severe respiratory obstruction. This is an emergency situation. If the patient is coughing or patient is able to say something, okay, then that is a mild respiratory obstruction. Then you don't have to interrupt the patient, encourage him to cough. Okay, with cough what happens ultimately, that because of cough only the foreign body will try to come out. Okay, because of the negative pressure that is created in the abdomen. So what will happen, it will exert a pressure in the chest, and ultimately the foreign body will come out. So if the patient is coughing, let him cough and encourage him to cough further. Okay. But if the patient is not able to cough, patient is not able to say anything, and patient is getting cyanosis, then you have to do this procedure. This is Heimlich maneuver. Okay. How this procedure is done? This is basic and you should know how to do it. Can you observe this between the leg of the two leg of the victim? Uh, the person who is giving Heimlich maneuver, his leg is there in between the two leg of the victim. Okay, why? Because if the victim gets unconscious, okay, so he can carry the weight of the victim and make him lie down. Okay, otherwise the victim will get if it's he lost his consciousness, and if this support is not provided, then he can fall down in any of the situation, he can injure himself. Okay, next what we have to do, you have to prepare a feast, your feast. Okay, and this thumb side will go into above the navel of the victim, okay, and below the sternum in between. Okay, and your second hand will come in front of it. Okay, and this will complete the fist. And then what you're going to do, you are going to give an upward thrust. What will happen by giving the upward thrust, and negative pressure will be created, and the from the abdomen to the chest and the foreign body dislodgement will be there. Okay, it will come up. But if the victim is heavy, okay, obese, or if a pregnant lady is there, okay, then you have to give chest thrust, not the abdominal thrust. This is very important. Now lastly, you just see the video of choking. This will quite clear you the idea about how the Heimlich maneuver is done.
How are you? Well, I was trying to call you last night. Oh yeah, you told me that you will be in Mumbai. So how was your trip to Mumbai? Oh, how so? Oh, is it raining heavily over there? Oh, I think he's talking. Hold on, I will help you. Are you okay? Feeling better?
When food or other item blocks a person's airway, choking occurs. You may see the universal choking sign, where an adult or older child may clutch their throat with both hands. In scenarios where there is severe airway obstruction, the victims will have signs of poor air exchange and breathing difficulty, such as silent coughs or turning blue, inability to speak and breathe. If you see any of these, you should immediately ask if the victim is choking. If the victim is not able to talk or nods his or her head, then you must act immediately. In a standing or kneeling victim, you will perform abdominal thrust, also known as Heimlich maneuver. Stand or kneel behind the victim and place your arms around the victim's waist. With one hand, locate the navel. Then make a fist with the other hand and place the thumb side of your fist against the victim's abdomen, just above the navel and below the breastbone. Grasp your fist with your other hand and press your fist on the victim's abdomen with quick, forceful upward thrust. Repeat thrust until the object is expelled from the airway or victim becomes unresponsive. If the victim is too large to wrap your arms around the waist, or is pregnant or overweight, then wrap your arms around the victim's chest and do chest thrust instead of abdomen thrust. Even after doing the Heimlich maneuver, if the victim shows no improvement or becomes unresponsive, then send someone to activate emergency response system. Perform CPR using CAB sequence, but be sure obstruct at the back of the throat.
So this was all about emergencies. Okay, the on conclusion, I would like to say that it is not very common to encounter medical emergencies in dental practice. But if it does you encounter medical emergency, then you should be prepared with all of the medical equipments, medical emergency drugs with you, and you should have at least basic idea how to manage all of the medical emergencies. What are the different drugs? What are the different equipments that should be there? In which situation, what drug is to be given? How it should be given? And what is basic life support, what is cardiopulmonary resuscitation, how it should be given. So at least when till the help arrives till you are able to manage the situation efficiently and very ably. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the detailed, elaborative, and very practical session. I hope all the students will get the basic idea regarding managing of medical emergencies in dental practice, and also regarding the BLS. They might have got the basic idea regarding the basic life support also. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rahul.
So this was the concluding session for today's interns orientation program. And with this lecture, we are ending the interns orientation program from the Department of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery. So thank you so much, everyone. All the best for your internship, and you all are welcome to the department. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.